What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Day 6 in the books here from Latrobe. Second padded practice. If you wanted fireworks, you got them. Maybe not in the way that we wanted it to, but fighting is a way of fireworks at training camp, and it happens pretty often. This is not the first fight I've seen covering training camp before. This is going to be my fourth training camp, so certainly by any means not the first one I've seen. This one, pretty par for the course, right? Landon Roberts hits Justin Fields. He called it a little tap. It was more than a little tap. It was enough to send Justin Fields spinning and whirling to the ground. And then Mason McCormick and Troy Falatanu come over, defend him, push Roberts and Patrick Queen, and then things go down from there. It got crazy, man. I really look at this and say it's indicative of the rookies. The rookies were the first guys there. They're raised in that, man. This is the culture that the Steelers want. They want guys that'll ride or die for their quarterbacks. And so this is exactly something that the Pittsburgh Steelers like to see in some aspects. And others, Mike Tomlin will call it a professional, and you don't love the idea of having brawls every day at training camp. It's unproductive and actively can hurt team morale if there's too many of them. But underneath that, there is big time stuff that you look at. And so I think, the fight in particular shows a lot of fight from guys like McCormick and Falatano, because I see it in other parts of their game. I see it when I'm watching them in one-on-ones. And, that's what Isaiah Loudermilk told me today. You can see the physicality, you can see the hungriness, but you can see the competitive edge these guys play with, man. They come in here and they want to beat you up. They are nasty. And so that is something that is really indicative of all three of these rookies along their offensive line. And so I really look at Pittsburgh's offensive line, the rookies that they drafted in, and they wanted something there. They wanted something. So you look at Pittsburgh, that offensive line, and say, guys, this is what you want. And so to a part of that, the fight and their one-on-ones is indicative of something. The one-on-ones now, back to that a little bit. So yesterday, my big focus was kind of watching Troy Falatano and seeing how he did. So you saw him go up against TJ Watt, right? You saw him win 2 out of those 3 reps. Today, no TJ Watt. Fine. He goes up against Nick Herbig. Herbig got him yesterday on a pretty sweet inside rip move. Today, Troy Falatano went 3-0 against him. That's what I would say, 3-0. Just really pretty stuff from Troy Falatano today. First rep speed rush, he cuts him off. I think what makes Troy Falatano work specifically is his hands and his feet. The coordination he has. He has great athleticism. We know this. He has rare athleticism for the tackle position. One of the more gifted athletes I have seen come out recently. But then you look at the hand placement, and he gets inside, and he doesn't have a ton of outside holdings. And then when you look at the grip strength, it's there. And then you see him in space, and he can redirect his body in ways you really can't see very often. He does really redirect himself to get a target in space on, say, outside zone or screen in just a way I haven't seen many guys be able to do it. And so he sticks out. Mason McCormick today got Isaiah Loudermilk, 2 out of 3 to Mason McCormick. I've always been a fan of Mason McCormick. And, you watch his tape and at South Dakota State, he's on another level, right? Like, this is what you want to see when you're talking about guys that are playing in FCS. You want to see someone that sticks out. And I saw it at the Shrine Bowl, too. When I was down in Dallas, I said, man, Mason McCormick is playing pretty well right now. And so he sticks out because he's an athlete, man. His athleticism, you don't think that he has that because he's 6'4", about 310. then you look at him and he just moves really well. Now, I do think one thing that pops up, and it popped up today when Isaiah Loudermilk beat him with a bull rush, was I really do think he sometimes plays a little too wide. And I really do think that. And more than that, he also plays a little high. And as a result, he can get pushed back by power. So we saw that. But then you see he's such a smart player. He's got great athleticism and strength, and he moves guys in the run game. His hand usage gets a little wide at times, but he's so strong he was able to hold up Isaiah Loudermilk. And then we get to Zach Frazier, who is such an interesting case to me. I look at him in one-on-ones, and Braden Fajoko was pushing him back a little bit, and he was struggling with power. And Montravius Adams is chop ripping him and beating him pretty easily, and he only went 2 for 4. But then I look at his tape, and you watch his West Virginia tape, and you see some of that against Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, but the results in team aren't translating to that. He's getting out in space and getting his blocks on backside A gap linebackers. He's reaching nose tackles and he's moving them. He pancaked Peyton Wilson today on one of those runs. And so while he can struggle with power at times, because I've seen him get pushed back a little bit, I don't think it's something to be super concerned about. Now, he doesn't have elite length. And I also think one of the things that really sticks out is that his punches can be just a little late. So when you are a little late on punches and you have this lack of length that he does, and a lot of centers do, what ends up happening is guys get in on our chest and can push you back. But I think his anchor's fine. I think that's just something he's going to have to rep a little bit and get at. But I think so far, he's getting better. I do think that week 1 comes around, I still think we will see him as the starter. I'm starting to see him kind of adjust to the NFL and see where he's going. So, rookie offensive line, man, I'm really enthused by them and what I've seen so far. So I think you should be pretty excited about that. Another thing that has stuck out to me, man, is I know a lot of people don't talk about it because it's a deeper kind of roster bubble, is the outside linebacker 4 picture. You know, we talk about Jeremiah Moon and Kyron Johnson and David Perales and Julius Welshoff, but you know, Johnson and Perales go down with injuries today. Jeremiah Moon's had a nice camp. I really think quite underrated camp, actually. He's got nice length. He's pretty explosive. He can play special teams. He moves well in space. I just think he does a lot of things well. As an outside linebacker 4, that's kind of what you're looking for, to be quite honest with you. So there's not a lot of negatives to me in terms of what I've seen from him so far. Now, there are negatives in his game. I think at times he kind of overextends himself, gets a little overzealous on the power moves. I know he has length, so he should use that, but I also think he has better bend than he probably gets credit for. So I'd like to see the speed rush develop a little bit better, but he's an outside linebacker 4. They're going to need him special teams. The length's going to be great on kickoffs. And so I think he's getting the driver's seat for outside linebacker 4. I've liked what I've seen out of him. Jack Coletto, man. How about this guy? If you don't know who Jack Coletto is, he is the fullback right now the Steelers are using with the first team. And boy, did they use a ton of him today. I mean, just it seemed like every other play I was looking up, and Jack Coletto was out there clearing lanes. He absolutely bulldozed Mark Robinson in the hole on one play. In 7 shots, he cleared lanes. It's pretty impressive what he's doing right now. And I really do like what I've seen from Jack Coletto in the team drills. He's moving guys, and then you get to one-on-ones when it's the running backs and fullbacks versus the linebackers, and he's beating them on wheel routes. He's beating them on mountain ups. He's beating them on Texas routes. It's like, dude, do they have something here? I'm interested to see that. He's a versatile player with his background. He's a fullback now, but was a tight end, so he can run routes well enough. Do we have a serious fullback here? I think that's a question to answer. I don't think we necessarily know the answer to that just yet. But more than anything, I really look at the roster, and it's hard to find where he slots in, right? Do they only keep 3 tight ends? Because they have 5 quality tight ends. I mean, Hot Rod is hurt right now, Rodney Williams, and he came back today in a limited capacity. But are they going to make room for Coletto? They're not keeping 4 tight ends and a fullback, would they? It would be tough to find out where that would come from, but who knows? Maybe they do. But Michael Pruitt is making himself a tough cut too at tight end. I mean, he's playing very well, and he's catching everything outside his frame, running routes. He's a good blocker. Didn't really know he had this receiving ability in him, but Michael Pruitt has played pretty well as a receiver. Over his career, it has not been that way. We haven't seen it translate over into games. And so I think there's reasonable skepticism. Like, this is not a guy that has been in the NFL for a short time. He's been in here since 2015, and his highest receiving total ever was 150 yards in the season. But right now, he's looking like a solid receiver. But I think there's skepticism to believe it won't continue. But more than anything, I think he's just a really solid all around tight end. So I think they can count on him, which is always important. And lastly, when you look at this team overall and the feel around training camp, I think people kind of want to know, what's the feeling? How do you feel? And it does feel different than last year, right? It feels there's a newness to it. The team feels so different than it did last year. There's different energies in the room. And even when you have Mike Tomlin there, when you have these new quarterbacks and Arthur Smith, it changes the dynamic of it. It's spicier. It has more of an edge. I think the defense had an edge last year that I maybe didn't feel from the offense. Now you kind of feel that from the offense. And so this rough, tugged, mean style of football where you're going to run the ball and smash it down someone's throat, I think they got the right mentality for them. I think it's just going to be about, do they have the personnel, a wide receiver with Roman Wilson out? Even if he's out and comes back week 1, how ready is he going to be? Because he's a rookie, and you worry about that guy when he misses that much time just playing right away, and where it comes from. But they do have an edge to them, and you can feel it every time you watch this team on a given day out there. And I think a lot of that is, you can attribute a lot of that to Arthur Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'm very fascinated to see where the Steelers go, but we're seeing a kind of different vibe of the team this year than the one I saw last year under McKenna on the offensive side of the football. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow talking everything Steelers training camp here on Steelers Breakdown. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.